So, hello everyone, and welcome to my YouTube channel. And I have been taking opportunity to interview interesting people that I meet along the way who really can help to, who have what to add for people who are looking to live sugar-free and to help them on their journey. And I met this lovely lady named Janita Falschlunger. I think I hope I got your name right this time, Janita. Janita is the founder of Sleep Well Synergy, which is a service to help people improve their quality of sleep. She also has a very wonderful Facebook group that I encourage you to join. And since Janita and I spoke, and we really discussed how interconnected, eating well and sleeping well are so interconnected and can also really influence each other so much that we decided to do together an interview. So, Janita, welcome, and maybe you can introduce yourself and also maybe tell us, because the truth is, I haven't met a lot of sleep specialty people. So, maybe you can tell us a little bit about your personal story and how this became your passion.
All right, great. Thank you so much for having me, Zippi. I'm super excited to be here with you all. The truth is really that, when we get asked what we want to be when we are young, I doubt that there are a lot of people that's like, yeah, I want to be a sleep specialist, right?
Yeah.
I think a lot of it that happens is somewhere along the line, life happens and that kind of, I'm not going to say force, but leads you into this part. So, for me, looking back, I think this really happened even in my very, very young years, because I have struggled with sleep from teenage years that I can remember. Not necessarily always in a consistent way, but I've had bouts. And looking back now, I know that it had a lot to do with trauma and with some stress and anxiety and things that happened, which, to be honest, I kind of feel as well happens a lot in our lives. If we look at what happened in COVID, loads of people that's never had any sleep issues, it actually brought some issues because there was an actual real stressor that caused anxiety.
You know what? That's amazing, because there's also like so many people who turned to me who said they didn't really have a problem controlling their food, and or they were in a good place already, and then COVID, like everything just went kablooey. So
Exactly. Yeah. So, from my side as well, I've had people that said, I don't know what happened. It's never been, I'm 50 something. It's never been a problem. And, but for me, really, what happened was I studied psychology. I've always wanted to be a clinical psychologist. From teenage years, I've just been that go-to person for people to kind of come to confide in, to help with conflicts or whatever it is. And very early on in my life, I decided that I want to help people. That is, I am a people's person. That's what I want to do. That's my calling. I didn't want to be a doctor, so psychology was the next thing for me. So out of school, I studied psychology. I got my degrees. And life was lovely, but I still had this, the on and off when life happens and things go on. I had these insomnia bouts that happened. And I think the real crash down for me, the real move for me, was when my second baby was born. And babies wake up as they do, right? A newborn baby will drink. But what my problem was, because of the insomnia that happened really in that moment as well, is the baby went down, but then I couldn't sleep. And then whereas normally you would have at least 2 or 3 hours of sleep in between, I wouldn't be able to fall asleep. And this happened night after night. And within a couple of months, I knew I need to change something. And I think for me also, coming from a psychological background, I thought that this was just postnatal depression, and it was this and it was that. And it took me a long time to actually just look for help, because I have the degrees, why can't I help myself, type of thing,
Absolutely.
But it is really, when you are in a hole, it's easier to get out of it when someone throws you a rope rather than trying to scratch yourself out of it yourself.
Absolutely. I love that. Yes.
Yeah, so I then went, I tried to scratch, the scratching didn't help, so I got someone to throw me a lifeline and I got help. And that is when, for me, I really, really experienced the in-depth darkness of what sleep disorders can really become. So I then decided to study further. And I then studied into sleep sciences. I did loads of different courses in sleep. And I also did a CBTI, which is cognitive behavioral therapy for insomnia. I did a course through Harvard Medical School. Within COVID, that's the one good thing COVID brought for me, was they actually made this available online. So I am currently living in Germany. So, I mean, Harvard is very far from me. And being able to do that online was very, very much super experience. I think that was one of my highlights of my career so far. And I am also registered on the CBTI database for CBTI clinicians international as well, because of that course that I was able to take. So I really think that within experiencing sleep disorders for myself, going through it, and then going through that massive dark period and seeing what a difference it made, being able to take control of my sleep and really change things from the inside. I think that is when my shift then went, I want to really specialize into sleep. That is how it happened for me. So,
Amazing.
yeah.
Wonderful. So maybe you can tell us from your point of view, Janita, how are nutrition and sleep interconnected?
All right, great. So I love questions. Let's question time. Okay, so how sleep and nutrition interconnects is we have something called the circadian rhythm, which is basically our internal body clock. So, but what a lot of people don't know is that our circadian rhythm doesn't just regulate our sleep and wake cycles. It regulates when we get hungry, when we get thirsty, when we need to use the bathroom, our body temperature. All of these type of things gets regulated by our circadian rhythm. So obviously, when it comes to nutrition, I mean, you will know more than what I do, obviously, on the nutrition side. But I mean, you get hormones called leptin, which is basically the hormone that helps you feel full, and ghrelin, which is your hungry hormone. I remember ghrelin by the your tummy makes when you're hungry, right?
Same thing.
Yeah,
I always
I
say
remember
ghrelin is
ghrelin.
gur gur gur.
Yes. But your circadian rhythm and these hormones, leptin and ghrelin, you actually find them, they're located in the same part of the brain. But the way that nutrition actually affects sleep is if you are eating food that are not sleep friendly, or perhaps a food that you have a sensitivity towards. Now, I'm not talking about an allergy, I'm talking about a sensitivity here. What can happen is it can cause inflammation, and that inflammation can actually keep you up. Another part of how nutrition can actually affect sleep is if your blood sugar levels are not stable throughout the day, and it's used to being up and down and up and down, when you have that sugar spike and a real fall at night, it can actually cause disruptive sleep as well. So, I mean, obviously, from my side, my professional, I come from the sleep point of view. So when it comes to the sleep actually influencing the nutrition, so insufficient sleep, when I'm talking about that, it can be quantity and or quality sleep. It can increase the levels of ghrelin and decrease the levels of leptin, which basically just leaves you with an increased appetite and that kind of inability to feel satisfied and or full.
So is that why, first of all, you talk about those sugar spikes? Definitely, I have clients who report waking up at night with a need to eat. And I have no doubt that that's very much connected with what you said. And
Yes.
also that it's very interesting what you say about the inflammation and about the sleep quality, because if there's one thing I know that makes people crave, sugary, starchy, hyper processed foods more, it's when they didn't sleep well.
Yeah.
Young mothers who are lacking sleep, or people just who have a lot of sleep problems. And I see that it's like really, really affects the sugar cravings.
It does. It does. So I mean, I like to look at sleep kind of as the same way as servicing a car, right? So when your body and your brain needs to get serviced, and the way that that happens is when you are asleep. So the same way as you cannot service a car while it is running, you cannot do all the magic that needs to happen in your body and in your brain when you are going. You need to switch off. It needs to happen that way. Another really, interesting part around this is we go through about 4 to 6 sleep cycles during the night. And in those sleep cycles, your brain will prioritize specific things that it needs to kind of, if you still look at this servicing analogy, it needs to service that because that's the most important. And what will happen is if you are not getting that quantity and or quality, so you're not sleeping enough or you're experiencing fractured sleep or any of that, the places that will happen last will be for instance, your frontal lobe, which is where the planning, the thinking, the decision making, all of those type of things lie. So what will happen is you're not getting the sufficient sleep. So you will end up with an increased appetite, high levels of ghrelin, low levels of leptin. You can get emotionally triggered much easier, which can also cause you, and because of this frontal lobe, it will then be the planning, the thinking, the decision making. You end up making bad choices, or not the great choices that you would have made when you are underslept and sleep deprived. I like to say that a sleep deprived mind is not a logical mind. So that is basically, how to answer your question, how does nutrition and sleep really interconnect with each other? I would say that is a great starting point to try and explain, how that happens and
Right.
impact.
So maybe we could go back to those clients who tell me that they're waking up at night, right?
Mm-hmm.
So what could be the causes of these, like, these times when they wake up, and how could that be connected to what they're eating, during the day? And
Okay.
also maybe you could give some tips about how to, if they do need to eat something, if they wake up with this feeling of needing to eat something, are the suggestions that you would make for people like this?
For better sleeping foods, basically. All
Yeah.
right, so I mean, let's start with the waking up. What are some reasons for people actually to wake up? So there are a couple, and I'll just mention, let's say, the top couple. So blood sugar levels that fall is a big one. Anxiety and or stress can be a very big one as well. Sleep apnea or other sleep and or medical conditions can be a very big one as well. Natural waking between sleep cycles it's a natural. We all actually wake up during the night. It's a natural because our brain needs to make sure that we are safe. It's for survival that we need to wake up. Obviously, the problem is many people cannot go back to sleep, and that is where we will then look deeper into, is this natural or not? Look, into possibly this being a sleep disorder or whatever. Inflammation is a massive one as well. Our liver is most busy around 2 or 3 a.m. And if your gut isn't happy, that is where that inflammation will really start to happen as well. And then another one, the last one that I would mention that can be a main cause to wake up is when we initially fall asleep at night, our body temperature actually needs to drop. It needs to fall to initiate sleep. It's one of those signals that, okay, I'm sleeping. But then naturally, our circadian rhythm prepares us for the day that's ahead. And our body temperature starts to rise again naturally at around 3, depending on our circadian rhythm. It is individual, so it's a rough estimate, it's around 3. And because of that rise, that spike can also be a reason that we wake up. So if we look at this list, I would say that blood sugar levels and inflammation would be one of those or 2 of those causes that can be directly linked back to nutrition.
Absolutely. I mean, the way to treat inflammation from its source is through food, right? Through
Yes,
good food, by eating
yes.
real nutritious food and staying away from the sugary, starchy, hyper-processed foods. So, absolutely, that's the best way to treat your gut, to, like, heal a liver that's, like, that's stressed out. So
Yes, yes,
It's
yes.
just,
And something that a lot of people actually don't know either or as well is that melatonin, which is our sleepy hormone, it's the hormone that we need to sleep, is actually produced in the gut as well as the brain.
huh.
So if you have an unhealthy gut and you are, experiencing some sleep problems, that is a good way to go as well, to try and see, to try and really see. So obviously food sensitivity has a lot to do with that as well, because your body is then producing antibodies that's causing this inflammation because there is a sensitivity to the food. Um, so, I mean, also to answer your question on specific foods, better for sleep. So, I normally say my first go-to is to Google a list to Google melatonin-rich foods while we are speaking about melatonin. Go through the list and really make note of your favorites, things that you know that you will be able to incorporate daily, because I can give you a list of 8 things or 7 things or 17 or 20, but if those aren't things that you will actually eat, there's no point, right? So, you
Wow,
know,
I'm definitely going to do that.
yes, yes,
So you
melatonin rich
Google
foods.
melatonin-rich foods, and is there a certain hour, like before sleep, that you recommend to stop eating? Like a certain time before sleep that you recommend, to start going into the night fast?
Yes, 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 of course. I would say roughly 2 to 3 hours before bed is a really good time to really think about I've had my dinner. Obviously, late night snacking isn't ideal for sleep, but if you have to really eat something later on, if you really get hungry again, I really suggest looking into something that's high protein, with some complex carbs, perhaps. Examples of this can be like half a banana and some nut butter, or a whole wheat cracker with some cottage cheese. Those are better options than going for the chips slash crisps or chocolates or biscuits or cookies or whatever it is that people will overall want to have that
Right,
time of night.
right,
Um, so those would be sleep wise. I think sleep friendly foods would be, kind of high protein with maybe some complex
right,
carbs,
right.
combining those as well. I
Okay.
mean, obviously, when you wake up during the night, eating isn't something that, I would say it's, especially because, your circadian rhythm is something that it is a clock after all. And when you do something for 2 or 3 nights in a row, what happens is your internal body clock starts seeing this as a pattern and something that it wants you to do, and it will then continue waking you up because and making you feel hungry because you're feeding the beast as such.
Right.
It's thinking
Absolutely.
that it's something that you want to do, it's a good thing, and then it will continue waking you up hungry. So I think really to break that cycle, it starts within as well, to really just say, but I'm not going to be the 3 o'clock eater anymore, and really just send new signals and new messages to your internal body clock to say that this isn't something that I want to do anymore, for it to understand, to break the pattern.
Wow. Very important. So, Janita, how do we know if we're getting enough sleep
Oh, I
or
love
and good
questions.
sleep?
All right, so I'm going to break this down into two, because there are two parts of getting enough sleep. The first one is easy. It's quantity, the quantity of sleep. So normally, if there's no other sleep disorders or any of those type of things, I'm just talking about the normal, am okay to sleep, I fall asleep, that type of thing, will be 7 to 9 hours of sleep. um, I really do put in the disclaimer to say normally, because when I work with people that has sleep disorders and they sleep only 2 hours a night, going from 2 to 6 hours is fantastic. And then you don't, 9 hours might be too far fetched. But if
Right.
if you don't have those problems, because a lot of time people actually keep themselves from sleeping. They stay up way too late. They procrastinate. It's not because of
Tell
a
me about
disorder,
it.
it's a decision, right? So in that sense, 7 to 9 hours of quantity would be a good starting point. And then quality wise,
Wait,
I
before
think,
you talk about quality, I have to ask you this. Is 9 hours something that you see people sleeping? Because, like, to me, 9 hours sounds like in our in today's world and today's society, like I don't really know very many people who actually sleep 9 hours. Um, the other thing that I'd like to ask you about the sleep quantity is, does it change with age? Because I do, this is just from my own observation of myself and, people around me, but I find that when, you know, postmenopausal women, their sleep changes. People as they get older, do they need less sleep during the night? Like how does that work?
So age-wise, the part of the brain that controls the deep sleep does deteriorate a little bit with age. And this is why people would say that, geriatrics, older people need less sleep. They don't really necessarily need less sleep. It's just that their sleep gets lighter, which means that it gets fractured easier. There are many comorbid factors that has to do with that as well. If you look at pain, all of those type of things, it can fracture their sleep. And this is why especially when I perhaps work with someone that's older, it's okay for them to have a nap, because their sleep is so fractured that they might only get 6 hours of sleep during the night, and they might need that extra hour or two during the day to have a nap. So I love naps, to tell people, but if you have a sleep disorder, a nap might be your worst enemy. So it really is an individual thing as well. But I wouldn't really say that your sleep needs change as such with time. But as you grow older, the parts of the brain that does control certain parts, like I said, like for instance, the deep sleep, you don't really go into such a deep sleep anymore. So, and that is why it's easier for sleep to get fractured as you age as well.
Right. Okay. So Janita, you told us about sleep, quantity. Now tell us a little bit about sleep quality.
Quality. All right. So quality really is, I think, the best way to really think about your own sleep quality would be asking yourself a couple of questions. So, are you tired or are you well rested in the morning? So, I mean, even if you get 7 hours of sleep, are you tired or well rested? So it is very normal to have like that first 15 minutes of dragging around a little bit before you wake up. Not all of us can be fresh as a daisy first thing in the morning. We have something called a chronotype as well. Your chronotype, basically, are you a morning or an evening person? And some people just aren't the morning person. So, but, are you rested or are you still tired when you wake up in the morning? If you are still tired and you are getting the quantity, then there might be something going on with the quality of sleep. All right. Are you able to get through the day before, or do you feel like you will be able to go back to sleep at 11 a.m.? Are you functionally optimally at that, in that sense? That is the question that you can ask yourself as well. Are you able to get through your morning before your cup of coffee, before, let's say noon, 11 to noon? Now
Are you asking like after the cup of coffee or before the cup of coffee?
So are you able to not drink the cup and still be able to function? So, but there is also, I have to put in a disclaimer here, because I've noticed that throughout my years of doing this, that there are a lot of people that get up in the morning and they drink the cup of coffee out of habit. All right. There is a big difference between drinking that cup of coffee out of habit, because this is what we do, this is what society tells us to do, right? Or are you drinking it because you just cannot be you or function at all without that first cup of coffee? So there is a very big difference. So I would normally tell people, take 3 days and see if you can go 2 hours in the morning without drinking your coffee. And if you're able to function and still be okay, and you don't see such a big difference between the way that your productivity as such, then I would say that you might be drinking that coffee maybe more so out of habit rather than you needing it because your quality of sleep was fractured or quantity wasn't there, right?
Right.
And you are using that to fuel yourself instead of doing it the natural way, which is to sleep more or
Right. Like
better.
using it as a stimulant to get you up in the morning.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And then what happens, I mean, I can talk about caffeine, but basically what happens is you're feeding a vicious cycle because you use the caffeine to get you up. You have that caffeine drop because caffeine has got about roughly, depending on our metabolism and things, but roughly about a 6-hour half-life, a half-life of about 6 hours. So a couple of hours later, you will come down very much as blood sugar would happen, right? And then you have another one. And then what happens as well is we all have a natural dip somewhere in the late afternoon, which is actually a natural dip. A 5-minute walk would have helped that as much as that cup of coffee would have. But we have that late afternoon cup of coffee, and that cup of coffee is the actual thing that's fracturing your sleep at night, which makes you waking up, not feeling refreshed, which makes you grab for the coffee.
Oh,
So
wow.
it really is feeding that cycle of poor sleep while you need the coffee, and as we go on. So really test yourself for about 3 days, see if you can go about 2 to 3 hours without that cup, still being productive. And that is a good taste to know, am I using this as a habit, or is it something that I really need to be able to get up because my sleep wasn't great?
Right.
Okay.
Gotcha.
And then one more thing
I
is,
so enjoy my morning coffee, like that like forget about like waking up. It's just like, I would just be like sad for 2 or 3 hours. But I totally understand what you're saying, that it's like,
yes,
are you really dependent on it or not?
yes,
So
yes,
Janita,
this is your part.
maybe you can give us, a few really good tips how to improve our sleep.
Okay. So I would really say that improving your sleep really depends on if you have a sleep disorder or if it's maybe just a couple of bad habits that needs to change. All right. So when it comes to, I don't have a sleep disorder, but I might be making some bad choices and, some habits, I would really say to start with sleep hygiene. Now, I know a lot of people might be rolling their eyes because, sleep hygiene is such a hype, but it really is. Look at sleep hygiene as if you wanted to start a vegetable garden, you really need fruitful soil mixed into that other soil for this vegetable garden to be fruitful. And sleep hygiene is really a foundation on that. So, really look at things like, are you using screens before bed? That type of thing. Because a lot of people
Television
will say,
in the bedroom.
yes, a lot of people will, again, roll their eyes, but they don't actually implement it. And then they wonder why their quantity and or quality of sleep is not sufficient, or they're not getting that. It's like they know this, but they just don't want to do it. So I'm here to urge you to really look into sleep hygiene. A good bedtime routine is great, but I also like to implement a good morning time routine as well. Because if you really think about it, that first half an hour, say 30 to 60 minutes of your morning, it really is setting the mood for the day. And if you already go into the mood for the day, stressful, running around, grabbing things, letting things go, that is the mood that you are setting. And that is most probably the mood that you will be going to bed with as well. So, really setting that mood. Take 2 minutes to do some mindfulness. It can make such a difference. If meditation is too hard for you, mindfulness is a really great place to start. Another thing that I would urge people is to not look at your phone, at least for the first half an hour.
Wow.
Because
it's a hard one for a lot of people, I think.
Yes, it's a big one. Because what you're doing is if you open your phone, when your eyes open, there is a tsunami wave of information, and often not good information, that you are rushing into your brain first thing in the morning. And again, that's the mood that you're setting. So, people that might be running their own business or, do not look at your emails before you have had your cup of tea or water or juice or whatever it is that get up, do some mindfulness. I love to brush my teeth first thing in the morning and do 2 minutes of mindfulness. Because the freshness of the tooth, after I've brushed my teeth, I can really just be mindful with it and feel the tingle and really go into that. And I stand by the window. If I don't take that, let's say 4 minutes, so I brush my teeth for 2 minutes and I do my mindfulness, if I don't do that 4 minutes, then I go from being a Cinderella mother to being, I would say, Cruella mother once I've woken up my kids. Because now it's school, we have to get ready for school. It's lunches, it's this, it's put on your shoes, put on your shoes, put on your shoes, And if I didn't take that 4 to 5 minutes for myself before all of this had to happen, it can go downhill, very fast. So
Wow, very.
I would really say, look at your morning routine. How stressful is it? Can you make it a little less stressful? Like, I cannot do anything about the fact that I have to wake up my kids and get them ready for school, but what I can control is the 5 to 10 minutes before I wake them up and really set the mood for myself for the day.
I also sometimes suggest to people who have a problem with mindfulness or just like that quiet is maybe like journaling. Could that be something that would be good?
Yes. Journaling, mind dumping, productive and or unproductive worries is a great thing. It's also a suggestion that I make. It can make a massive difference, especially because what I normally say is I help people improve their sleep by reducing stress, anxiety, and other sleep disorders in their lives, or sleep destroyers in their lives. So stress and anxiety, when you just look at those two factors, journaling can make a massive difference. Mind dumping, just writing the things down, because what happens is we have such busy lives and we pack our day full of everything, that even if we do have 5 or 10 minutes to sit, we grab the remote or we grab the phone. We are not in our heads at all during the day. So what happens is, I like to explain this as this dumping zone, that our brain then does, and our subconscious is like, okay, so you didn't have time for me to think about any of the stuff. And it dumps everything in that mind dumping zone. And then when it comes to bedtime and you're like, okay, well, now I can, it's now time to just zen out and be whatever. Guess what happens? Your subconscious is like, hey, I'm joining the party. And it brings up all of those things that you dumped at the back of your head, in that mind, in that dumping zone. So this is why mind dumping or journaling or productive and unproductive worrying or whatever it is really comes in, because you're not suppressing it, but you're acknowledging it. And when we suppress these things, our subconscious really wants us to, because there's a reason why you're suppressing it. So it must be important, right? And then it keeps bringing it up. But when you bring it up to light and you acknowledge it and you say, there's a reason why I'm worrying about this, or I'm stressed about that, or whatever, then your brain can, in a sense, make peace with it.
Right.
So yes, journaling is a fantastic way.
Wow, sounds really great. Okay, what about like all these like somebody, I heard a suggestion about a sleep mask, like to, so that you have complete darkness, or is that important?
Darkness is important for sleep, and this comes into sleep hygiene as well. Darkness is important for sleep because our hormone, melatonin, is our sleepy hormone, but it's also called the hormone of darkness. And it only gets secreted when it is dark. So when there's too much light coming in, and this is where the screens also come in, right? The screen time, even artificial lights, it's basically sending signals to your brain that, hey, it's daytime, and then the production of melatonin isn't there. It's not sufficient. So if you are not able to have a dark room, then I guess a mask will, it will be better than having the
Does it
light
have to be pitch dark, or if it's darkened, is that like enough?
as dark as possible.
Okay,
the ultimate sleep place would kind of be cave-like. It has to be cool, it has to be dark, and preferably quiet. So if you have a noisy environment, then if there's only so much you can do, but hopefully at night time it will be quieter than during the day. But it will be cave-like. It will be cool, because remember, your body temperature has to drop. So if it's cool, it goes into that natural signals that it's sending, hey, we're getting ready for sleep. If it's dark, again, all the signals get sent. What I want to just put in a little disclaimer here, that if you do actually have a sleep disorder, sleep hygiene will not be enough.
Gotcha.
All right. So that is if you have a sleep disorder or maybe suspect that you have one, seek professional support, because sleep hygiene by itself is not enough for someone that actually does have a sleep disorder or have real sleep struggles.
Gotcha. Wow, Janita, thank you so much. This has been so informative. And I think it's so important because remember, everybody, that really the need for sugar or these like sugary hyper processed foods can really be mediated, which means like if you get really good sleep, it can really, really help you on your sugar-free journey, over the course of the day. And it also, if you eat well, that can so affect the quality of your sleep.
Yes.
So thank you, Janita, for explaining to us, about sleep and how to get better sleep quality and what's important to us. This was really, really interesting. This is I really found this. I learned definitely a lot of new stuff, and um, I'm actually going to say to you that I'm going to really do my best not to open screens for a half an hour after I wake up. Like you said, I think that
Yeah.
is like I'm so connected to that. So
Yes.
thank you
Yes.
so much.
You're
Um,
welcome. I normally
right.
suggest try it for 10 minutes. And if 10 minutes freaks you out, then you probably need half an hour, because it means you're so dependent on opening your phone. So if 10 minutes feels too much, then you probably need half an hour.
I'm sure I need a half an hour. I have absolutely no doubt. Janita, where can we find you? If people want to look for you, where can they find you? Where can they look you up?
Sure. So I am Sleep Well Synergy, basically over the interwebs. So I've got a website, Sleep Well Synergy, Sleep Well being one word, and Synergy being the next. And then I also have a free Facebook group that is a little bit more focused on women, unfortunately, because of the menopause and all of those things that come in. But the free Facebook group is the Sleep Well Synergy Tribe on Facebook. But of course, I do help men as well. So you can find me on the website, and we can just go through there. All my email address and everything is on there as
Excellent.
well.
Great. So thank you so much, Janita, for joining us today.
Thank
And
you for having
everybody,
me.
if you liked this interview, if there are specific subjects that you would like me to, interview people about, please recommend them in the comments below. Let us know what you think about, how are you doing with your sleep quality. If you like this video, please give it a like, maybe share it, and you can subscribe to my channel and get lots of really interesting stuff. And don't forget to press the notification button so that when a new video comes out, you get notified. So thank you very much, Janita, for joining us today. Thank you all for listening in on our interview, and we'll see you next time. Bye bye.